So, it's often said that gematria is a lot like chopped liver. Chopped liver, I read an article in Forbes which says chopped liver is America's most hated food. Okay, my wife certainly hates it, but maybe some of you love chopped liver. I think it's great. It's one of those polarizing types of foods. And the same is often the case with gematria. There are many people, I myself used to be one of these, who's you could say a gematria skeptic. Kind of feel gematria is superficial, doesn't quite do justice to Torah, something to that effect. On the other hand, there are many people who love gematria. And when one hears gematria, you get this warm feeling. People like to figure out all different types of connections. And it's often very exciting for people. And again, you do get both of these types. And what I'd like to do is to talk with you today about my transformation, if you will, from being a gematria skeptic to being a gematria lover. Okay. So let me give you some introduction, a little bit about myself. I'm a Rebbe and I'm a mathematician. And when I was training, when I was learning for smicha, I was studying for a PhD in mathematics, people would always tell me, I didn't tell people, this is what I'm doing, I'm being a Rebbe, I'm being a math professor, and they'd say, wow, you must love gematria. Such a good connection. And at the time, my honest answer, I was always polite and I smiled, but deep down, I did not love gematria. I didn't even like it. And let me tell you a little bit about why it is that as a young man, I didn't like gematria. I had my misgivings, my questions about it. So I loved learning Torah. Baruch Hashem, I was fortunate to have great Rabbeim who showed me the beauty of the Torah, how the words of the Torah, the divine words of the Torah, as interpreted by the Mefarshim, as interpreted by Chazal, enlightened the world, showed us ethics, values, how to live our lives. The depth of the Torah was unbelievable. Every word spoke volumes of meaning about how we should live our lives. On the other hand, talking about mathematics, I loved mathematics. From the time I was a kid, I was that math guy who some of you that talks to you, some of you are afraid. I have students who are afraid of math, but whatever. I was that guy who was a math guy. And as I advanced in my studies, I began to study more abstract mathematics, rigorous mathematics. I appreciated the beauty, the abstraction of mathematics. I studied group theory. I study now something called graph theory. And math is one of those things that appealed to me. But when I thought about gematria, it didn't talk to my Torah side or to my math side. Gematria didn't seem to me beautiful Torah ideas. It seemed on the surface to be taking words of Torah, which have real meanings. The words have meanings, and translating them into a number, finding another number, another word which has the same number, and just somehow making this superficial connection, as it often seems. And it didn't talk to the math side of me either. It wasn't high mathematics, it's just plus. So at the time, I was skeptical. I didn't love gematria. But at the same time, I knew gematria is part of Torah. And in Torah's Hashem Tamima, it's not an option to say, oh, I don't like something in Torah. That's not a choice. It's part of our Masorah, one of the 32 methods of Drash, Rebbe Eliezer. It's not something that a person could just say, it's not my thing. It is Torah. But I was at a loss to understand. What are Chazal teaching us? Why are they using gematrias? What's the point? It just seemed superficial. Certainly the way it was often presented, as we all see at Simchas, and a lot of seemingly superficial connections. So, at the time, I thought, maybe let's see what Rishonim, Mefarshim have to tell us about gematria. So, I want to share with you two Ibn Ezras and a Ramban that kind of shed some light on gematria, and then tell you a little bit more about my journey. So, gematrias, as we know, are often used in bad ways, if you'll say. And the bad way, I'll tell you a terrible way. It's used often by Muslims who use gematria to actually support their religion. The pasuk says in the Torah, it says, "Ulishmal shematicha hine berachti yosav b'meod meod." It says Hashem tells Avraham that Yishmael is going to be blessed. He's going to be very great. B'meod meod. He's going to magnify him, make him bigger. B'meod meod. Very, very great. And b'meod meod, Ibn Ezra cites that there were Muslims who said the gematria of b'meod meod is the same as Muhammad. And the Torah is predicting Yishmael is going to be Ma'od Ma'od. It's predicting the future of Muhammad. And Ibn Ezra says that people who say that, what are they going to do? The same word, Ma'od Ma'od, is referenced by Klal Yisrael. It's Klal Yisrael is going to be very great. Not only Yishmael, it's just a word. And then the Ibn Ezra ends. He says, "V'chalila sheyedaber hanavi b'gematria nebarmizas." Chalila, chas v'shalom, heaven forbid, that the Torah, the Navi, will talk in gematrias or in allusions. And I think what he means is the word b'ma'od me'od has a meaning. It means a lot, plentiful. It doesn't mean Muhammad. It doesn't mean a number. You can't just take words of the Torah and just transfer them to other things. Words have meanings. A similar comment that Ibn Ezra makes. By the way, Muhammad isn't the only, I guess, false prophet that gematria is used. Shabtai Tzvi, the famous false Mashiach, he worked out somehow that the gematria of Mashiach HaEmiti and Shabtai Tzvi are both 814, the same gematria. So again, you could do a lot of things with gematria. Ibn Ezra points out again, a famous gematria. The Torah tells us how many men did Avraham go to fight to rescue Lot? Anyone remember how many men?
300?
300, close, in the ballpark of 300? 318. 318, okay? Good. So there's a famous Rashi who says that the gematria, 318 is actually the gematria of Eliezer. What it's saying is, he only went with Eliezer, that's who he went with. So, Ibn Ezra says, Chesh ben Osios Eliezer, this calculation of Eliezer, derech drash, is a way of drash. See what that means, hermeneutical allusion. He says, the Torah doesn't talk in gematrias. A person could take any word, any name, any word, and make it good or make it bad. Rak Hashem kimashmao. A name is what it means. So 318 means 318. Eliezer means Eliezer. The Ibn Ezra is saying the Torah doesn't talk. You can't read the pshat in the Torah to be just changed around words for numbers and numbers for words and all that. At the same time, we do know that Ibn Ezra isn't discounting it altogether. He's just saying it's derech drash. That's not the pshat of a pasuk. But it is drash. Of course, drash is part of the Torah. So the Ramban in Sefer Geula, it's part of Kisvei Ramban, he says the following. And I'm going to read you a quote about the Ramban, who the Ramban in this Sefer, he references a gematria, and then he addresses people who might be skeptical of his usage of gematria. And he says the following, I'm just going to read it in English. Perhaps a person will oppose me for relying upon the calculations of the letters, which we refer to as gematria. Such calculations will seem to him to be vanity and emptiness, since a person can derive bad and strange ideas from many verses using this method. The Ramban continues, we will respond to the one who asks about this matter in accordance with the truth, namely that no man is permitted to apply his own gematria calculation and to derive any notion that occurs to his mind. Rather, there's a received tradition which has been passed down by our rabbis, the holy sages of the Talmud, that certain known gematrias were transmitted to Moshe at Sinai in order to serve as a mnemonic device and an allusion for matters which were given orally, along with the rest of the oral Torah. Some in the realm of Agadah, and others in the realm of that which is permitted and prohibited. The Ramban is saying, gematria, you can't just make up your own gematrias because you just feel like you made some sort of a connection, but rather there's a Masorah, there's a tradition that Chazal have about certain gematrias, and these gematrias allude to certain ideas in the Torah. They're part of the given. And what I wanted to understand is what could we gain from these ideas? There's gematrias which are just homemade, and there are gematrias which are part of a Masorah. Why do Chazal using gematrias? What's the point? The Torah seems to be, the Ramban is saying, it traces from Sinai. What's the idea of using such a methodology? Words have meanings. What's the value in having a method where you convert words into numbers? Yes?
Before I answer the question,
yeah.
So basically gematria is like a book of how certain words in the Torah have numerical value and how it ties into.
Yes, it's basically, it's like exactly, it's like is a system. I don't know if it's quite a book, but it's like a system of a tradition of words where certain words are allusions to various numerical values or to other words which have the similar numerical values.
What was the question again?
So my question is why do Chazal, what's the idea of using this type of method? Words have meanings, and what's the idea of converting words into numbers and then finding other words? It seems like a funny type of method to use.
Because a lot of the time, I feel like it just starts it makes a connection.
Okay, good.
So
Okay.
Abraham's name,
Yeah,
Abraham Avinu, or his name.
yeah.
It adds up to 613, and
Two-
there's 613 mitzvahs.
248. But yeah, okay. The positive mitzvahs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. I'd like to develop that idea. Yes, go ahead.
Doesn't Gematria also have a correlation when it comes to like Torah codes and stuff?
I think they might be. They're two different things, but I think they're relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
Hidden meanings below the surface that we wouldn't see generally.
Yes.
That then make more connections inside the Torah.
Yes. Great. Yes. Excellent. Yeah.
So, we know that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world from
Yeah.
the Torah.
Yeah.
And we know that the world, the universe, is highly scripted from a
Right.
numerical standpoint. We know that even some great British mathematician proved that the entire universe is founded on 6 numerical constants or whatever.
Oh
it is.
yes. Fine tuning.
Yeah, fine tuning. And since the Torah is pretty much
Reese. Martin Reese. Right.
Martin Reese, there you go.
Just 6 numbers.
Yeah, so since
Yeah.
we know that the universe is, the Torah is the book of the universe.
Yes.
It's the song of the universe.
Yes.
It shows how everything is finely tuned.
Great. Perfect. Yes. Excellent. Great point. Yes. We'll get to that a little bit. Yeah.
How does Rambam know that these sources he's inheriting are not just from rabbis who at some point invented their own gematria?
Good question. The Ramban.
Rambam.
Yes. Ramban. Yes. Good question. I don't know how he knows that. What?
Aleph is one.
Yeah.
It's
the
pretty
problem.
broken down.
Yeah,
Is-
okay.
Is Hebrew the only language that have meaning to numbers?
I don't think so.
All right.
I've seen gematria in English, but who knows if it's has any validity.
Okay, so let me develop a little bit, okay? So, yes, go ahead.
Does gematria have any halachic implications?
Yes.
Have they been used to derive any?
Good question. There's one I know of, which is the length of a Nazir, of an Nazirite. The standard length of a Nazir is 30 days, because the Torah says Yihiyah. There's an extra word Yihiyah, and the Torah learns out that the gematria of Yihiyah is 30. So it does have an application in halacha. That's the one example I know of, but perhaps there's others. That's why the Ramban alluded to some in halacha and some in Agadah and some. But generally it's in Agadah, but it does have at times. Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. So this was again at the time I was still going back to my story here. I was still perplexed. It just seems to be a funny way to take words of the Torah and to allude to different ideas by changing into numbers. And I decided years and years ago, when I was about your guys' age, I decided to see if I could gain deeper insight into a gematria. Perhaps I could gain some sense of what the value, why use gematria, what ideas, maybe a certain type of idea we could learn from gematrias. So here's the following example. Torah says the beginning of Parshas Chayei Sarah. Avraham zaken baba yamim. Avraham was old in age. Hashem berachas Avraham ba'kol. Hashem blessed Avraham ba'kol, with everything. Kol, all, with all. What does it mean Hashem blessed Avraham with everything? What does everything mean? So the Ramban, the Ibn Ezra explained that ba'kol means everything. He had servants, he had cattle, he had wealth, he had a family. He was a pinnacle of success. Hashem blessed him with all kinds of brachos. Avram was a very successful man. And that's the brachas Hashem, because of Hashem. But Rashi strangely says that Bakal doesn't quite mean everything. Bakal in Gematria is 52, and it's the same Gematria as Bain, a son. And now that he has a son, it's time to marry him off. And this is the beginning of Parshas Chayei Sarah, where after all, he sends Eliezer to go find a wife for Yitzchak. And the question which bothered me is that why take a pasuk which is saying Hashem blessed Avram with everything, extravagant wealth and greatness, as the Ramban, as the Ibn Ezra say, and limit it to one thing? A son is great, but it's not everything, it's only one thing. Why do that? So I was thinking like this, is that if you start thinking about the pasuk, what does it mean that Hashem blessed Avraham with everything. Everything. Yes. Goes. Okay, great. Excellent. Everything, right? Now, is it possible to have everything? Imagine I asked you, maybe a genie comes to you and says, you know what? I'm going to give you everything. Start writing. Okay? Make a list. So you write goats, and maybe nowadays it would be phone computers and cows or whatever, modern day things. But the list goes on. Imagine you're making such a list. In your mind, think of the list. You're going to be writing, okay? Now the genie says to you after you finish, let's say 10 minutes later after you finish writing, you're like, okay, I'm done. He says, okay, you ready? That's it? Here's your list. I'm going to do everything. Oh, hold on. I got one more thing. I got two more things. See, the point is that everything is not quite attainable. We never say, I have everything. We could say I have a lot, but there's always room for more and for more and for more. It's a type of a thing that who really ever gains everything? How could Hashem even bless Avraham with everything?
Internal feeling.
Yes, it's an internal feeling, yes. In fact, the Pasuk says, Ohev Kesef, someone who loves money, Lo Yisba Kesef, will not be satisfied with money. We never seem to be satisfied. Chazal tell us a person doesn't die with half of his desires in his hand. Person wants 100, or nowadays 1 million. You get 1 million, then you want 2 million. 10, there you go. You get 10 million, you want 100 million. It seems to be impossible for a person to ever say, I have everything. Well, how is it possible? So the Ramban, I think, helps us out. When Avraham died, the Pasuk tells us that he died Zaken v'saveya, old and satisfied. Satisfied. It says, the Ramban points out that it says the same thing when Yitzchak died. It says something by David HaMelech. Satisfied, yes.
Basically, Hashem gave him the Maslow pyramid.
Okay. What's the Maslow
It's
pyramid?
like a hierarchy of needs, right?
Oh,
so
I see.
you need enough food to survive, you need
Okay.
security,
Yeah.
you need a set
Okay.
population,
Okay.
something. So
Okay,
he
great.
gave everything
Yes.
he needed.
Yes. Okay, excellent. So the,
everything he wanted.
well, that's the difference. Let's get that. I like that. Need and want. Let's take about that. So when you read one line in the Ramban, and then I'll talk. I'm happy you both said those words here. The Ramban says, "Sipor chaste Hashem b'tzadikim." It teaches us the chesed Hashem, the kindness of Hashem to tzadikim, umida tova bahem, and their good midah, their good character trait. Shelo yisavu b'mosros, that they don't desire extravagances, luxuries. And I think this is the key to satisfaction. For a person to be satisfied, even Hashem, to make a person satisfied, he has to be satisfiable. And if a person has to, I think, clearly differentiate between his needs, the Maslow pyramid, and his wants. And there's a big difference. A person's needs, we could assess. They're limited, they're quantifiable. We could assess the different things which are valuable to us in our lives and figure out what do we need. And if we can make a true assessment of that, we could be satisfied, we could be happy, we could say we have everything. On the other hand, if a person is chasing his wants, our wants are motivated by our fantasies, our desires. They're endless. What do we want? We want everything. And then when we get everything, we want everything squared, exactly. And it keeps on, it's infinite. Everything, our wants are infinite. Our needs are finite. So when the Torah is telling us Hashem blessed Avram with everything, Rashi is not denying the plain pshat that he did bless him with lots of things, as the Ramban Ibn Ezra is saying. But even having lots of things, there are tons of people who have lots of things, but they don't say I have everything. Esav had lots of things. But what did he say? Yesh li Rav, I have a lot. But Yaakov Avinu said, Yesh li Kol, I have everything. To have everything, you have to have the midah tova, that there is an appreciation. You're not a person who desires mosros, extravagances, will never be satisfied. A person who recognizes his needs could be satisfied. And I think that's what Rashi is telling us, is that Hashem berachs Avraham bakol, Avram Avinu, what did he want in life? He didn't want to be a millionaire. He discovered HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He saw the importance of that for the world, and he wanted to teach that ideas which he discovered to the world. And he knew that could not be accomplished without a son. As he said, Eliezer is not going to cut it. As Rashi says, he was an Eved, and it wasn't going to fly. It wasn't going to build a nation out of it. So in order to accomplish his goals, what did he need? He needed a son. It wasn't going to work without a son. So yes, Hashem gave him everything. But all the things Hashem gave him aren't on his list. His list of everything was just a son. And that's what it's telling us. Bakal for Avraham is everything. Avraham could die satisfied because his needs, he appreciates his needs, and he knows he needs a son. Now, that's nice. That's an idea. A person is rich as someone who's happy with his portion. It's an attitude. But why do Chazal use gematria in specific to teach us this type of idea? Is it just, it's a good way to make a connection? You could say that. But I think it's even deeper than that. See, what is gematria? Gematria takes a word, bakal, and makes it into a number. It takes a word, bakal, which is an infinite word. It's a word that never ends. Bakal is everything. It keeps on going and going and going. And it converts it into a finite, fixed number, into a quantity. 52. The gematria is 52. So it's saying is, again, the point of using gematria is because that's exactly the idea which it's trying to convey. The bakal, you'd think it's infinite? It is infinite for everybody else. But how could Avraham have bakal? Because bakal was finite, was quantifiable. So Chazal are using a quantitative method, gematria, because that's the nature of the idea that they're trying to convey. The way to accomplish, to have everything, is to recognize that it should be finite, by having a finite assessment of what are truly your needs. So it's not just a connection, it's a specific type of a connection, which is targeting the idea at hand. Yes?
I was wondering if Abraham was like the biggest tzaddik,
Yes.
why does he need something? Right? A tzaddik doesn't need anything.
Okay, great. Good question. So the needs means like this, is that what he valued, he had a true value of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He recognized that he had an avas Hashem, and based on his avas Hashem and his ava of people, he realized that that's what he needs. I don't know, it depends on what I mean by needs, but based upon what was truly important to him, to really accomplish what was valuable to him, he was moved to be able to establish, to teach these ideas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to other people who unfortunately didn't have them. And he assessed that can't happen. That's what I mean by need. It can't occur. His objective in life can't occur without having a son, without being able to. But the money, he could do it. The money helps, but he could do without the money. He could do without the cattle. He could do without it. But a son, it wasn't his. He assessed that he would die. He and his ideas would die in a few generations if he didn't have a son to be able to build a nation from. Yeah. Yes.
So just quick, how we got to the sun was we had the word everything. We converted that into numbers, and
Yes.
we converted the numbers back into a word.
Yes.
Like what? So how did that third step occur?
Yes. Okay, good question. So I'm saying is that we're not doing it. Chazal are specifically drawing this connection,
They're
which is
discovering it.
there, or it's passed down. I mean, the Ramban is holding that passed down. It's a question how you learn. But the Ramban seems to be holding these are passed down to allude to this idea. So I'm saying it was specifically in the Masorah, in the tradition, there's this connection between these two because it's trying to give us an insight that Bakal has a simple interpretation, but there's a deeper interpretation of what it means to have everything,
All
which is
asking
through the
is, like,
numbers.
How is 52
Oh.
both simultaneously everything and
Oh,
sun?
well, the numbers. Bakal is Beis is 2, Chaf is 20, Lamed is 30. That adds to 52. And Ben is the son, is Beis Nun. Beis is 2, and Nun is 50. And then every number has a corresponding, every letter has a corresponding numerical value.
So you're performing an operation, you're adding them
Yes,
together.
exactly. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes. Okay.
So Ben is also 52?
Yes, Ben is also 52. Yes. Okay. So now here's the question. This is again, I discovered this idea many years ago, about your age, and I used to, as a rabbi, as a student, you always have to have a Dvar Torah in your pocket ready in case anyone asks you to give a Dvar Torah. So this was mine. Whenever anyone would ask me to give a Dvar Torah, I'd pull this out. Everyone would always like it. They'd smile. There's something clever about it, but they'd always ask me the same question, and maybe half of you are thinking this. Could you do this for other gematrias? This is one gematria, which works out well. Bakal seems infinite. Finite is everything. And the way to get infinite is really make it finite. And it's perfect for this idea. But there's so many gematrias. Not, of course, there are a million gematrias in the world, but in Chazal there are many gematrias. Could you explain all gematrias this way? Or is this just one thing? And my answer was always the exact same thing. I don't know. I just didn't know. It was a nice connection, but I had no idea. And for years, 15 years or so, whenever I said this Dvar Torah, I'd always get that same question, and I always had the same answer. I don't know. It's one idea. I like this idea. I have no idea. Tzarech Ian, as they say. We have to look into it further. And fortunately, about 5 years ago, I gave a share about this, and someone asked me that question, and I said, you know what? I'm going to look into this a little bit further. And I was fortunate to discover something more generalizable than this, because this is just too specific. And I realized maybe we could extend this idea a little bit and discover a more general idea for how Chazal use Gematria. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my basic theory, and then I'm going to have to give you a few examples to show you what I mean. So it's going to sound abstract, but we'll get concrete in a minute. And the idea is like this. Chazal use Gematria when they want to direct our attention towards a very specific type of idea. What type of idea? An idea which involves quantity, number. When they want to direct our attention to the importance of quantity, of number, of amount in a given area of analysis, they use the method, a quantitative method, by converting words into quantity. Specifically, Chazal use Gematria to reference, to draw our attention to quantity in a surprising type of way, in a way that we may not have otherwise noticed. And that's why they're using this method. It's not just a way to make connections. It also accomplishes that. But I'm saying it's directing us to look deeper into the area, into the part of Chumash, part of Torah, whatever the case is, and see if we could discover the role of quantity in the given area. Now again, that's very abstract and vague. Let me give you a few examples. Okay. So, in the laning on the Kriyas HaTorah, on one of the saddest day of the year, on Tisha B'Av, we read, the Torah tells us, Ki solid banim uvnei vanim. It's a prediction when we have children and grandchildren, v'noshantem ba'aretz, and we get old in the land. V'hishchatem, when we become corrupt and we do avodah zarah. Hashem saying, Moshe is telling us, Hashem testifies today that you're going to be destroyed. You're going to perish from the land. When you live, again, when you have children and you become old in the land. Rashi says, what does it mean, old in the land? The gematria of V'noshantem, you'll become old, is 852. Okay? It means that after 852 years, it's a hint that after 852 years of the Jews being in Eretz Yisrael, they're going to be thrown out of it. But Rashi says, in fact, if you do the math, it was only 850 years. It was 2 years early. And it says Hashem, in His kindness, proceeded. He threw us out of the land 2 years early. Why? Because the beginning of the pasuk says you're going to become old in the land, and you're going to do avodah zarah. The end of the pasuk says you're going to be destroyed. You're going to perish. And it says, in order, since Hashem didn't accomplish the first part of the pasuk, it wasn't full 852, it was only 850. So too the second part of the pasuk, you're going to perish, also was not accomplished. So it was a chesed to us to keep us 2 years early. What's the idea and why use Gematria to teach it? So perhaps it's telling us something about good and evil, and about Hashem's judgment of people, which is as follows. We often think of the world, we think of good, we look at the world kind of, this is like from when we were kids, from television, from movies, as good guys and bad guys. It's basically everyone in the world just fits into one box, good or bad. Different qualities, good and bad. But in truth, people are much more complex than that. A person could be bad, or could be very bad, or could be very, very, very bad, or totally evil, beyond the point of no return. Same thing in goodness. There's good, and there's better, and there's better, and there's better. And it's important for us to keep in mind. We can't just think, oh, I did an avera, I did a sin, I'm bad. No, maybe I did one thing wrong, but that doesn't mean you can't get worse, and you can't get worse. And quantity is important. Quantity of good, quantity of evil is important. And it could be it's telling us that the Jews, when they were in time of the Churban, in time of the destruction of the temple, we were very bad. 850 years worth of, again, we started out good, but there's a descent to evil. But there comes a point of no return. And if the quantity of our evil got to the fullest extreme after 852 years, that would have been, there's no turning back. Then, as the end of the pasuk says, we would be destroyed. But it was the chesed Hashem, Hashem's kindness was that He stopped the bleeding 2 years early. He did it 2 years early after 850 years. Why is that good? Our evil wasn't so bad. We weren't that steeped in evil that we were still potentially capable of turning around. And we did turn around. And the reason why we could still exist today is because Hashem stopped us those 2 years earlier. Point is that Chazal are teaching this idea through gematria because the nature of the idea is highlighting the importance of quantity in Hashem's judgment of people, in people's goodness or in their evil. Hashem's judgment includes quantities. As I said over there, as Hashem, just like in the universe, Hashem fine-tuned the quantities of physics of our universe. Hashem's judgment also includes quantities. For instance, Chazal tells us, based on the Psukim, that Hashem's measurement of good is 500 times more than his measurement of evil. He rewards 2,000 generations of good people who do good, and he punishes for 4 generations for people who do evil, a ratio of 500 to 1. Part of Hashem's creating the world, giving us the Torah, judging the world, quantity is a major element in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Chachma by which HaKadosh Baruch Hu rules the world. And using Gematria directs our attention towards that. I'll give you one more example, and that's in Megillas Esther. Okay? Megillas Esther is our next holiday coming up. And in Megillas Esther, there's, as we all know the story, it's a very story which makes everybody happy. It's an unbelievable story of Megillas Esther. And I'd like to use it, take up a gematria and help shed more light on some of the ideas in the story of Esther. Okay. So, let me just okay, good. So, when Haman made this evil plan to destroy the Jews, okay? Now, he pitched his plan to Achashverosh, and when he pitched his plan to Achashverosh, he offered to fund the plan, to pay for the plan, right?
Haman was going to pay for the plan?
Haman was going to pay for the entire thing. Exactly. He offered to pay for the entire thing. And Achashverosh did not take his offer. He said, "Ha-kesef nasan lecha," the money is given over to you. V'ha'am la'asos bo ketov beinach, and you do what you want. Achashverosh said, I don't need your money. Keep the money. Okay? Now, on that word, ha-kesef, the money, ha-kesef, Tosfos in Megillah, in 13b, he tells us the gematria of ha-kesef, 165, is the same gematria of ha-eitz. What's ha-eitz mean? The tree. And Achashverosh is alluding, remezlo or ramazlo, he's hinting to him, sheyidla alav, that he's going to be hanged on a tree. Okay? When he says, ha-kesef, nasan lechat, your money is yours, he's alluding to the tree. Now, was Achashverosh telling Haman that he's going to be hanged on a tree? Of course not. This was the early Megillah, before anything happened. He's not hinting to him. He's saying, keep your money. I'm happy to destroy the Jews. So what does it mean that ha-kesef, the money, is alluding to the tree? It doesn't seem to be...
Could use different words.
Could use different words. It's true, but that's the way you say the tree. And you could have used different words, but I could take your words and make them into numbers and whatever. That's not, it's not a way to do that, right? Okay. So I think we have to do this like this. Now, again, when I first started out, I was thinking, quantity, 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 quantity. It doesn't work. We have to analyze the area. Okay, let's analyze this story. Okay. So I've asked you a question. Why did Haman offer to pay to kill the Jews?
Because if someone else was funding it, they would have
Excellent.
the ability to cancel it.
Yeah.
And if it's his money, and if that would have went through and agreed,
Yeah.
then they would
Excellent.
stop it.
Excellent. Excellent. See, Haman knew Achashverosh loved money. Right? The whole beginning of the Megillah is him showing all his great wealth. So while it might be a great plan, Haman's pitching here to destroy the Jews, but he knows that in the back of Achashverosh's mind, he's going to be thinking of the cost of this project. And therefore he may turn it down because it's a good idea, but after all, it's too costly. There are a lot of good ideas. There are a lot of bills which people have, but what's the costs involved? Haman is saying, don't worry about the cost. I got this. I'm going to back this up. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. This is a bill which I'm committed is for the best interest of the kingdom, and I'm going to pay for it. Don't worry about the money. Don't let that get in the way. Good idea. Sad that he did that. In fact, when Mordechai was wearing sackcloth, and Mordechai told Esther about what happened, it says he told her that about, give me 1 second, it says, Vayaged leMordechai es kol hashekaro. Basically, Mordechai told the messenger to tell Esther what happened, Ve'es parashas hakesef, asher amar Haman lishkol, and about the money. So when he was trying to convey to Esther how dire the situation was, he told her about the money. Because the money shows it's going to happen. It's not one of those ideas, which is a good idea in theory, but when you come to paying for it, it's going to fall. It's not going to fall. Haman offered to pay for it. And if there's ever a shortfall in the money, Haman's got the back of this bill. This is going to go through. That was what was so tragic about it. That's why it was so sad. So Esther had to spring into action, and she had to make a plan. So let's think, what was her plan? How did she pull off to stop the plan? So the main thing, again, I'm going to explain a pshat which is based upon Chazals, based upon certain Gemaras in Megillah, and elaborated by some of my Rabbeim. Okay, but they wanted to say like this, is that she knew what makes the plan stands on the strength of the relationship between Haman and Achashverosh. If they are close, if Achashverosh trusts Haman, the plan is going to go through. You got to make a break between the two. You got to get Achashverosh to somehow suspect that Haman's not all that good.
Yeah, but is Esther and Ahasuerus already together? Like
They're married, but they're not. They're married, but at the same time, he doesn't know that she's Jewish, and
Yeah.
they're very close. Yeah.
So what is she's gonna tell him, like, oh, you tried raping me or something?
Oh, so here's what he did. She made like this. She made a party. She risked her life. She went before the king in a way where you could risk your life. The king could kill you. The rule is if you walk into the king's palace without being invited, you're going to get killed. She put her life on the line. Obviously, something's really, really important if the queen is willing to put her life on the line. So what does she say when the king asks her, I want a party, a private party with me, you, my husband, and Haman. Right? Haman. What's Haman doing at the party? That's weird. This is serious business, life-threatening business, and a private party, husband, wife, and the third wheel, Haman, it gets him thinking. And at the party, she doesn't tell him what's up. I'll tell you tomorrow, we'll make another party. What's Achashverosh going to think that night? He couldn't sleep, as we know. He's thinking, what's going on here? Is there some plot? Something's going on. I don't really know. What's Haman doing at my party? Starting to think about something's going on. And when he couldn't sleep, he asked to bring out the book of remembrances, the Sefer Zechronos. He's thinking, maybe there's someone I didn't reward. Maybe there's someone upset. Maybe there's a conspiracy going on. What's something? I need friends. I need allies. Who is my ally? And sure enough, as the Hashgacha had it, as the divine providence had it, he found in the book the part of Mordechai. Mordechai saved his life. And he thinks, wow, Mordechai is a great servant. He was willing to save my life. And at that very moment, Haman's all excited. Because after all, Esther played into his ego. He feels like he's $1 million. He's at the private party with the king and the queen. He's so excited. But the second he walked out of that party, he saw Mordechai. And Mordechai would not budge, would not stand up for him, would not bow. And he said, everything which I have, all my greatness is worth nothing to me when I see the one Mordechai. Imagine the mindset of the ego. The one guy, he says, worth nothing to me. So he had to eradicate Mordechai. At that very night, right when the king can't sleep, Haman comes into the palace to make his plea to hang Mordechai. He couldn't wait till the morning. And right when the king is about looking for how to reward Mordechai, the Haman comes in about to knock him down. And sure enough, the king kind of puts him on the spot. He says, what should we do to reward someone who the king wants to reward? Doesn't say that is Mordechai, because he already has suspicions about Haman now, planted in his mind by Esther making that party. And so sure enough, as we know, he says, oh, the king should give him the royal treatment, put the crown on his head. And he says, do that to Mordechai. And this is the beginning of Esther's plan coming to success. She's starting to create daylight, to create a division, a gap between Haman and Achashverosh. And that set the stage. When she saw that, she was ready the next day. And the next day, she really spelled out her argument exactly. She said, my nation has been sold. If only this enemy would have sold us as servants, I would have been silent. It's not worthy. I don't want the king to lose any money. And her argument, as elucidated by Rashi, her argument is that if Haman is really looking out for the best interests of the kingdom, and he thinks the Jews aren't good servants, then sell the Jews into servitude. Right? If you want money, then sell them. Why are you killing good servants? That doesn't really seem to be in the best interest of the kingdom. Right? And that's our argument, is that the fact that he is willing, that he's trying to destroy us, is proof of the fact that he's got a personal agenda. He's got personal interest in this. And then, sure enough, right after that, the king got shocked, and Ravona showed, and not only that, he built a tree for Mordechai, the Jew, who's after the king's good friend now, and he says, go hang him on the tree. And that was basically her plan with the divine assistance coming to fruition. Now, the question is, I think Chazal are trying to teach us with this gematria, is that what allowed Esther to plant the seeds of dissent, division between Achashverosh and Haman, went all the way back to the beginning, when Haman offered to pay for this extermination of the Jews. In a certain sense, I know we said the opposite before, we'll take that out, but in a certain sense, if Haman's looking out for the best of the kingdom, why does he have to pay for it? Doesn't that look like he's got a personal agenda? If he's willing to pay for the national bill, if it's really good for the kingdom, then the king should pay for it.
Just say yeah.
Sounds like he's trying to push it through because he's got a personal agenda. Now, at the time, Achashverosh didn't notice it. At the time, Achashverosh was happy to, let someone else foot the bill. And he ended up saying, no, it's okay, I'll take it. But he saw it at the time as a sign of devotion. But look, a part of him, there's something strange about that. Now, you could ask, what do you mean? But it's as we said before, it is a good idea to show, put your money where your mouth is. Isn't it a good idea for Haman to show that he's devoted to the plan, to show that he's willing to pay for it? And I think the answer is quantity. It was a good idea for Haman to agree to offer to pay for some of the bill, to show that he really meant it. But the entire thing, to pay for the whole bill, the quantity, he went too far. He had a good theory, he had a good idea to offer to pay for it, to show that he's serious. But how far he went, the quantity that he was willing to pay for the entire bill, 10%, 20%, it would be enough to show that he really believes in this bill. To pay for everything, he got carried away. And I think that's why, by using gematria, Chazal are saying that hakesef, the money, is an allusion to ha'etz. The beginning of Haman's destruction was the quantity in his offer of that money. He would have paid less, it would have been okay, it wouldn't have been noticed. But that was the beginning. That Achashverosh didn't notice it now, but with thinking back, he realized at the moment these things are racing through his head. He went to the garden. He's kind of thinking things over. The beginning of the problem. Give me 1 second. I'll get to you. The beginning of the problem was when he offered that money. And again, Chazal are specifically using the gematria to highlight the importance of quantity in our plans. We often make plans in our lives. We want to invest in a certain stock. We want to spend time with our family, going to college, learning Torah. We have a lot of good plans. But the quantity is all so important. How much should we invest in this stock and in that stock and that stock? How much time should we spend learning Torah? How much time should we spend on college, on our degrees, on our family? Judging quantities, good planning, good thinking is not just qualitative thinking. We have to carefully allot proper quantities in all of our decisions. That's part of life. And I think this Chazal is directing our attention towards that. Yes?
It is a very old idea. It's hard to say this, and not necessarily a Jewish one, that with every action there's a mean, right? There's a quantity that you can get perfectly right. So attendant to every action, there's that factor. And almost everything in existence has a relation to the idea of quantity. Even nothingness and totality has that relation. So maybe it's too general an idea.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I hear you. So that's kind of what I do in the book, is I try to see different expressions. And you may or may not be convinced. I hear you. You could always say quantity and it's too general. I hear that argument, and I can't really defend it other than show you, again, I'm not doing this here if you get the book or whatever, to see the various examples. And there is certain areas where quantity is unexpectedly involved. And I'm suggesting, as Chazal use gematria to show us surprising dimensions to it. But everything is quantity. I mean, not everything. Yes, quantity often appears, which is true. It does often appear, but sometimes in surprising ways. Like you might think, is it a good idea for Haman to offer money for it? You say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I hear that. Sometimes you don't notice how quantity is so important. And we often overlook quantity. So yes, it is ubiquitous. Quantity is always coming up, but in surprising ways. And I'm saying Chazal direct our attention to it in important ways.
The question is it central?
Yes, is quantity central? Exactly. To highlight the centrality of quantity. Exactly. Yes. So let me just finish up with this thought. The Rambam talks about, in the end of the Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam talks about people who have questions on Torah. Sometimes people think, why does the Torah have to tell us about all the descendants and all the lineages from this generation, that generation? He lived this many years and had this kids, and then he died in this. Or why does the Torah tell us about all the journeys that they went here and then they went here and they went here and they went here, 41 different whatever journeys? Certain details of the Torah, people question: does the Torah really need to do that? It just seems superficial. And the Rambam explains a few of those, and he concludes by saying, anything which is hidden from you, you should know the Torah is divine, and there's a truth to it, and there's a good reason for it. And he quotes a Chazal which says, Ki lo dava reku mikem. The Torah is not an empty matter from you. And the word from you is funny. And Chazal interpret it to say, the Torah is not empty. And if it seems empty, mikem, it's from you. The Torah is divine. We sometimes have shortcomings that we don't necessarily see the wisdom of the Torah. But we should know the Torah is divine, and there is greatness to the Torah, even in instances where we don't necessarily see it. And I think my lesson, which I've learned from my study of Gematria, is when I was a kid, I was skeptical of Gematria, and I had my doubts. But at the same time, now I see, and maybe I knew this in the back of my head but didn't put my finger on it, the Torah is divine. Gematria is part of our Masorah. The Masorah is deep, and just because I don't understand it, it's not legitimate or appropriate for me to say, oh, Gematria, nah. That's not, if it seems empty, it's mikam, it's from me. And in this example, I was fortunate 2 years later to discover the wisdom and the beauty of something which seemed superficial to me to be Gematria. But we all have in our own pursuits of Torah or of mitzvos, there are things which seem superficial. They don't quite seem to jive. They don't seem to make sense for us. And it's okay to feel that way because we don't, but do I say therefore there's a problem with the Torah, or do I say therefore there's a problem with me? I'm young, I don't know that much. There's a whole life worth of learning to do. And we can know the Torah is divine. We could see the wisdom of the Torah in various aspects. And then we have to say in the areas that we don't understand, we have to be a mispal, we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have an honest humility to say, I don't necessarily understand everything. And that's a lesson that I've come to go from a Gematria skeptic to a Gematria lover. And if I've gone to that, I'm hoping one day my wife will start to love chopped liver. Okay, I just want to talk for 2 minutes about my yeshiva. So again, I'm a Rebbe in a yeshiva in Far Rockaway. And it's a small yeshiva. It's for guys who, most of the guys, again, just like myself, I'm a Rebbe and I'm a mathematician. Most of the guys in our yeshiva are guys who are looking to have a balance of learning Torah and a career. Torah is Iker, but at the same time, guys are looking for go to college. Guys go to Queens College or to Landers College. The guys who are looking for a balance. And the yeshiva really trains guys. If a person does have a life of Torah and of Parnasa, it's often difficult to learn Torah. And the yeshiva is trying to train guys to learn how to learn on their own, how to think on their own, how to analyze a Gemara, how to analyze areas of Hashkafa, of Chumash on their own. And that's where we come to the Rebbeim, are warm. We have a small yeshiva with a lot of Rebbeim, and we work with the guys in a very close way. It's called Yeshiva B'nai Torah in Far Rockaway. So if anyone's plans on being in America, plans on being in that area, going to Queens College, going to Landers, I'm happy to give you a lot more information, tell you about the yeshiva. There's a lot of funding available, scholarships available for any people who want to come, so don't let money get in the way. What?
A lot of Persians?
There's some Persians. There's some Persians affiliated. I don't know if there's any Persian students currently, but we're Persian friendly. There's currently like 15, 20 guys there on a daily basis. The dorm has like 10 guys. Usually your average day is like, in the morning Seder is like 20 guys. The afternoon and evening guys go to college. It's small. It's a small friend, but we're part of a community. Like a given day in yeshiva could be guys your age, but then guys my age who spend half their day learning Torah and half the day working. So there's a very warm community where I have tons of guys over at my house for meals on Shabbos, as do the other Rebbeim and other people in the community. It's just a friendly, warm community which again helps guys grow individually with working with guys, helping them to be able to grow as learners of Torah and people who go into the world as well. So again, anyone wants to give me an email or I give you my email, and there's any questions, I'd be happy to talk. Also, if anyone wants to buy, I have copies of that book. If anyone's interested, it's like $20 or something like that, or 7 shekels, whatever. We could talk. But again, if anyone's interested, if not, it's all good. Yeah, take a look. Feel free to peruse, whatever. What's that? Again, it develops the ideas in this book, and we talked about it in many ones.